Okay, here is the summary of a procedure for a hypothesis test. Number one, you state the claim and the opposite of the claim, and then identify the null and the alternative hypothesis. Remember that the null hypothesis is the statement is assumed true until evidence indicates otherwise, and the alternative hypothesis is the claim to be tested. Three ways to structure a hypothesis test is that we have a two-tailed, left-tailed, and right-tailed. So the null always contains the equal sign. The alternative for the two-tailed is a not equals. The alternative for the left-tailed has a less than, and the alternative for the right-tailed is a greater than symbol. Now the alternative hypothesis is the one not containing equality. So the alternative hypothesis uses the symbol less than or greater than or not equal to. The null hypothesis is the symbolic expression that the parameter equals the fixed value being considered. Number three, you then determine whether it is a left, right, or two-tailed distribution according to the according to the alternative hypothesis. Number four, you select the significance level alpha. Based on the seriousness of a type 1 error, make alpha small if the consequences of rejecting a true null hypothesis are severe. The values of 0.05 and 0.01 are very common. Number five, calculate the test statistic. You identify the test statistic that is relevant to the test and determine its sampling distribution, such as a normal, t, or chi-square. Number six, find the corresponding p-value or critical value and draw your curve and then label. So for the p-value method, you find the p-value and then show the test statistic and the p-value on the graph. On the critical value method, you find the critical value and show the critical value and the test statistic on the graph. Number seven, you make a decision. For the p-value method, in order to reject the null hypothesis, if the p-value is less than or equal to alpha. You fail to reject the null hypothesis if the p-value is greater than alpha. Now, to make a decision for the critical value, you reject the null hypothesis if the test statistic is in the critical region. And you fail to reject the null hypothesis if the test statistic is not in the critical region. And number eight, you state the conclusion. And then you use the following to state what your conclusion is. So recall here what the original claim, whether it includes the equality and does not include the equality, whether you reject the null or fail to reject the null, and then you would use the following statements to then for those four different types of conclusions. Then you have the confidence interval method. Okay, now because a confidence interval estimate of a population parameter contains the likely values of that parameter, reject the claim that the population parameter has a value that is not included in the confidence interval. Now the confidence level for confidence intervals. For the significant level for the hypothesis test, if you have 0.01, a two-tailed percentage for the confidence interval is 99%. If it's one-tailed, then it's a 98%. For a two-tailed 0.05, it's 95%. For one tail, it's 90%. For 0.10, the two-tailed test is 90%, and the one-tailed test is 80%.